Time to build something a bit more substantial. I'm going to create this photo viewer app. Okay, it is reasonably simple, but it's using multiple scenes, navigation controllers, table views, image views, push segues, modal segues. It's passing information from scene to scene using a custom object that represents a photo with the title, it's got file name and notes about that photo, and each scene is showing something different about that same object. We'll do this in 5 basic steps. Step 1 is to create the storyboard, define the scenes and the segues, add the user interface elements. We're going to be passing a custom object between them, so step 2 will be create a custom photo class. This is fairly simple, it's really just a structure of data. After we have that defined, step 3 is going to be adding the custom view controller classes for each of the new scenes because no code will have been added automatically. We'll have to manually do that and connect them all up. Step 4 will be writing the code to load the data into the first main view controller, which is the table view, and then writing code to create those objects and pass them between the different scenes, having each scene show something different about each object. So let's go ahead with step 1. In Xcode, I'm going to create a new single view application, and I'll call this one Photo Viewer. Well, this thing is going to need some photos, and luckily I have some. I could drag them into this project, but I'm going to use the asset catalog. That's the better way of doing it. So clicking on the images.xc assets folder, I don't want it to be app icon or launch image, but if I click the plus button down at the bottom, I do have an import option. I'll use that. Now you can go to the exercise files. I actually do have the photos on my desktop here. There's just 5 of them. I'm going to grab them all and click open. It's going to bring all of those photos in. By default, it'll just use the same name as the file name without an extension. So I've got Emerald Bay, Joshua Tree, Red Rock, Snowman, and Sunset. That will do for now. I'm not bothering at this point with having both 1x and 2x versions of these. 1x will be fine. So I said step 1 had been set up the storyboard, so I'll jump across to the storyboard here. And the first thing I'm actually going to do is just completely delete this view controller. I don't want that. So there's now nothing on the storyboard, and while we're at it, I'm going to delete the viewcontroller.h and .m files from my project and entirely move them to the trash. We are going to start with a storyboard that's empty. And the main reason for that is the first thing that I want to add, my first real view controller, even though it'll end up in a navigation controller, the first one that will show data will be a table view controller. So I'm going to drag on one of those, not a table view controller. The difference is this will automatically have a cell already there. Because that was the first one now, this has been set to the initial view controller. In a while that'll change, but this is fine. I'm going to now drag on a second and a third, and this will be a regular view controller, the very top one in the object library. The second one will show or display the photographs, and the third one will show some information about the photographs. Now, because we'll be transitioning between all of these, we really need to embed them in a navigation controller. Well, the way to do that is just pick the first view controller that I'm interested in. This is my table view here. With that selected, come up to Editor, Embed in, Navigation Controller. That will take care of loading our navigation controller first and immediately loading the table view controller into it. What I then want to do is describe the fact that there will be a segue when clicking on one of the cells in the table view to this next view controller. So I'm going to control drag from the table cell to the next one. It will be a push segue. Then it automatically understands that this one will also be included in the navigation bar, so we see the bar appear at the top. And because this is going to have a full screen display of a photograph, I don't want to put just a regular, almost empty text button there, so I'm going to add a button to the navigation bar. Now I could do this with a regular button, but the better one is something called a bar button item. So if I filter on that, we should find a bar button item. I'm going to drag that up to the top here. Again, this bar isn't going to appear until you segue from the table view and make sure that they're both included in that navigation controller. I'll double click on that and I'll just say details to show some details. But this second view controller here really needs to show that photograph. So I'm going to find the image view control, drag that across. I'd like it to fill the entirety of it. And there we go, and let go. And what I want is when someone touches that details button, we are going to transition to the third view controller. So I'll do another control drag across, let go. This time I'll select modal. And we'll see the impact of that in a moment. This third view controller is going to show some details about the photograph, so I'm going to drag on a label. Drag that into the middle here, and a little longer, and say in the Attributes Inspector that this might have 3 lines of content. The only other thing I'm going to add here just below that label is another button. Double-click that, and that will say Done when we're done with that final screen. So that's step 1. We've defined the basic storyboard. We've added a bunch of different user interface elements like image views and buttons and bar buttons and cells. But we don't have any code yet, and we don't have any custom object. That's up next.